Hello chess friends and welcome to Zarov's chess channel and welcome to my Basics in Chess series. So in this series we follow opening principles, middle game strategies and the end game strategies. If you're familiar more with my YouTube chess channel, then you have noticed that I've also covered many of these instructive chess games on my Basics in Chess series. So today I wanted to show you really a great and instructive chess game played by the legendary TIgran Vartanovich Petrosjan. TIgran Vartanovich Petrosjan, of course, the former world champion, and the game that I wanted to show you today, it was played in 1954 against Hector Corral in Montevideo. So when I searched for these games on my for my Basics in Chess series, then I really searched these games with many of these strategical elements, with all of these natural elements in chess, and I think we have followed many of these great games, and today you see this was really an attacking brilliancy played by the legendary TIgran Petrosjan. So let's see the game. We have d4 here by Petrosjan, knight to f6 by Corral, and now c4. So still common theory. I'm not going to show you this opening preparations. I wanted to show you these games from this strategical point of view. So here e6, and we have now knight to c3. We have this East Indian defense, which can transpose, of course, into the Nimzo Indian setup with the move bishop to b4, and here Corral played the move d5, so we have now this queen's gambit decline setup. And in the game Petrosjan played c takes d5, the exchange variation of the queen's gambit decline, and I myself like to play this exchange variations in the center, because after this trades of pawns in the center, which you should do sometimes, of course, if you have a better preparation with the dynamics on the board, you still can proceed, of course, to play like that. But I like to play a sort of a clear style in chess. I like to undermine the pressure in the center and then search for weak squares or weak pawns. So that's just my style. I'm not saying it's the best style. You can choose, of course, your own style, but here I really like this exchange variations in the center. So after e takes d5, that's what I'm talking about. Now we have this static center setup, which I've explained many times in my on my YouTube chess channel. Now we have the position in which the center is really static, so it means these pawns are blocked out by each other, and that's why you should search for progress by covering these squares. From white's perspective, of course, you would attack somehow the c5, or for instance this e5 square. So from black's perspective, of course, you're attacking here the c4 square or this e4. So you're making progress by occupying these central squares here on the board. So but there is one problem, or at least one advantage that white has, because if you always watch this pawns in the center, then white has always here, after this exchange variations, white has always this pawn central control. This means that we have now two pawns in the center. It means on the d and e file, and black has only one pawn. It means we have this pawn central control. So if we could prepare maybe something like f3 and then e4, then we would have maybe two connected pawns in the center, which could really be powerful. So it means if we could have somehow a d4 pawn or a e4 pawn, then we would have a perfect restriction of our opponent's minor pieces. So it means we would restrict all of these squares for our opponent's minor pieces, and that's a huge thing, because in chess we want to play centralized with our pieces. So of course, by putting our pawns on the square e4 and d4, you see this these pawns are covering all of these important squares on the board. So here we have bishop to g5, and this is of course a most active square for the bishop, but I just wanted to always explain this moves by this central control, because when we play bishop to g5, not that this bishop is always just pinning the knight against the queen, but it also indirectly creates the defense against this e4 square, because this knight is covering the e4 and controls the center, combined with the move with the pawn here on d5. So these are very important things, because chess is all about it's all about fighting for the center. So this is really a sort of a double function move. It creates sort of a pin, but also a central control here. So knight for b to d7 played by Corral, and now we have e3. Bishop to e7, of course, protecting. We want to we don't want to have this spin by the bishop on the queen, so that's why bishop on e7, a common move, and now bishop to d3. When we develop pieces, we basically want to put them on the most active square. So you see here the knight on c3 is perfectly fine. The bishop on g5 is of course on the most active square. Now it's time for the bishop. You may think that bishop to b5 is maybe the most active square for the bishop, but when you place your pieces in an opening, you don't want to lose tempo, so that's why here a c6 would be a possibility. Then you can play maybe bishop to d3, but you have lost the tempo because now we have a new position in which black has fixed the center. So you see, although it seems that this move bishop to b5 is the best activity, it's not, because bishop to d3 is perfectly fine. So here castling played by Corral, and now knight from g to e2. So this is a very important move which prepares here this potential f3 e4 move, and this is now our main idea when we have this pawn central control. That I said, we have this 2 versus 1 situation in the center. So our main idea, our main goal is to play this f3 e4 idea. Maybe the best way here for black is to crack the position with the move c5, but there are problems after queen to c2. You would have some problems maybe here on c7, because then the serious threat would be also knight to b5, attacking the c7 weakness. So it's not so easy for black to push the pawn on c5 immediately. So here rook to e8 was played. It meets with the idea. It's also a very important principle in chess. When your opponent has the king in the center, you should try somehow indirectly attacking it, because of course if the position clears in the center, then we would have maybe some discovered attacks by the rook against the king. So queen to c2, it's a developing move, it's an attacking move, it's again a multifunctional move, because first of all we are attacking here this h7 weakness. First of all, pardon me, here we are also attacking this c7 weakness, but the most important thing is that we are controlling this very important e4 squares. We are not allowing these jumps of the knights, as I said, in the static center setups that I've explained. We would love to place our knights, for instance, here on c5, but you see black has covered all of the squares by this bishop and the knight. Here, from black's perspective, black would love to jump here on this square e4. So far it's not possible, because first of all this pawn is hanging, so that's why here first c6, and here h3 played by Petrosian. It is an idea, it's a positional idea, because after something like h6, if your opponent tries to kick you away, then you can play bishop to h4, then bishop to g3, and then hide with your bishop on h2. So this is a preparation by TIgran Petrosjan. It's also preventing some bishop to g4 ideas, if the position of course allows it, but bishop to g4 would be an attacking move against this knight. This knight is very important because it's again multifunctional move by TIgran Petrosjan. It's a covering move, but also after something like f3 and e4, you see it covers a very important square here on g3, and here also with the support of the bishop, we don't have problems on dark squares if we, for instance, push this pawn on f3. So in the game after this move h3, knight to e4 was played by Hector Corral. Here taking is not good, because we can take with the queen, and now black has accomplished what he wanted, because now it's not easy to take out the knight in the center. After d takes e4, we have to go somewhere with the bishop, for instance bishop to c4, but after something like king to h8, I think here f5 and g5, simply pushing forward, because we have now an advanced pawn. We have an important advantage on the 4th rank, so black has already occupied our side of the board, so it wouldn't be good, this potential trades of pieces. So that's why after the move bishop to pardon me, knight to e4, here TIgran Petrosjan played the move bishop to f4. Now the knight is hanging, so you have to do something. If you support it with the move f5, then it can be kicked away with the move f3. So here Corral tried, of course, to do this reloading system, trying to stay on to this space advantage. As I said, chess is all about central control. Then after that you want to occupy your opponent's side of the board. So now this move knight to f6 comes with the idea to support this knight, which is very well placed on the square e4. So here f3. Now finally this idea to kick away the knight. Here we have knight to c3, and now b takes c3. It's a very important move now to take out with the pawn, because we are of course taking towards the center, and now we are even more supporting our central control. That's a very important thing. Now the serious positional threat is here to push the pawn on e4. Bishop to d6, played by Corral, and now bishop to d6. We don't mind to give up even the dark square bishop, because if we evaluate now, after queen takes d6, if we evaluate the position by the activity of the bishops, now we are continuing the game with a better bishop than this one on c8, because our pawns are on dark squares, which is a very good thing. And now you see black has some problems, because all of his pawns, or most of his pawns, are on dark squares. So after queen takes d6, now finally the move e4. And you see how important this knight is. It covers this very important g3 square. It covers also this very important f4 square, so the queen cannot attack the king. And here knight to h5 was played, and now e5. And now you see how TIgran Petrosjan builds simply his attack. We have now a dominant central control. As I said, the game started from the situation in which we had 2 versus 1 pawns in the center. Now it's a very tricky position now for Corral, because he has also to cover here this h7 weakness. So that's why he tried here queen to h6, and now we have queen to d2. Very important positional move. It's sometimes it's the best way to, if we have, for instance, one advantage like white has here, we have here a very important pawn on e5. You see the queen is the only really piece that bothers us, so it's not a problem to trade off the queens and simply hang on to our pawn central control. Here after queen takes d2, king takes d2, the king is not endangered, and now it's time to push forward f4. g4 is the possibility, because now the knight is endangered, of course, here on a very unnatural square, and now we can simply push these pawns further and create really an unstoppable pawn storm. So of course we are attacking on the king side, because we have here a very important element, and this is pawn majority. So we have a 4 versus 3 situation on the king side. So a potential c5 now by black is simply too slow, I think, because black hasn't battled for the center. At least black hasn't battled good for the center. So now a c5, as I said, is simply too slow. So that's why here g6 played by Corral, because there were also some threats to trap the knight with the move g4. So in the game, g4 anyway played by Petrosian, knight to g7 had to be played, and now you see h4. Now these pawns are rolling. Now it's really dangerous. Here h6 was played, and now of course rook to f1. We want to support our attack even more. This is now the so-called principle of this last piece that hasn't played so far. So now this rook is participating also in the attack. This knight is also participating in attack. This other rook is also. So now the pieces are basically on the best squares, and now it's not so hard to play. It's not so hard to continue this middle game, because now it's time to push the pawns again. In the game, bishop to d7 was played by Corral, and now rook to g1. Of course, f4 wasn't immediate possible. That's why it had this g4 pawn had to be supported. We have b5, and now f4, simply pushing forward. And if you have noticed, I'm not explaining this game through this tactical elements. This game is really not tactical, but it's really important, I think, to realize your advantages, your potential pawn breakthroughs, your potential improvements of position of pieces. So here f4, simply a great move by Petrosian. We have a5. You see black is trying to counterplay on the queen side, but it's a little bit too late, because we have now of course the move f5. We have g takes f5, g takes f5. Now we have a new situation in which we have 2 versus 1 pawns here on the king side, and this rook is really dangerous, aiming against black's king. We have king to h8, and here is now the critical moment of the game. Here I would love for you to pause the video and try to find the best next move. It's a really great move that Petrosian has found. It's really a tactical move now. Finally, we have some tactics going on. It's not some kind of a tactics in which you win the game immediately, but as I said, we want to get use of our advantages, try to exploit your opponent's weaknesses, and now I hope you could have found this move, because it's the move e6. It's a sacrificing move of the pawn, but just in order to get these pawns rolling again, after f takes e6, we have f6, kicking away the knight. Here the knight jumped on this square f5, but now bishop takes f5, e takes f5, and here again I want you to pause the video and try to find the best next move. After that move, Hector Corral resigned. It's a great move, and it's an attacking move in which against which black doesn't have any counterplays at all. This bishop, as I said, you saw the problems when you have this pawns on your same squares like the bishop. So you see all of these pawns are like squares. There are now some really positional problems here in black's position. Again, try to find the best next move. It's a great move that TIgran Petrosjan found. It's also a checkmating threat here by white, and it's the move rook to g7, and in this position, as I said, Hector Corral resigned. A very important move, because the threat is here to play knight to f4, knight to g6, and creating even some checkmate threats. So for instance, if you try here to play something like bishop to e6 to get away, then we could play again this knight to f4 idea. You cannot of course play bishop to f7, and it's game over here for black. So great game by Petrosian. I wanted to go back a little bit here. A very important move after this e3, then to build up with this bishop to d3 idea, knight from g to e2, and now f3, queen to c2, pardon me, and after h3 here we have bishop to f4, knight to f6, and now f3, building this slowly set up with the preparation to play the move here e4. For instance, let's see the position. If for instance you take with the knight, you see the problems, how you can make a mistake in these types of variations. So recapturing with the pawn is here very important to get these pawns glued together. Now this e4 move is a serious threat, and black didn't find any counterplay against this pawn storm that Petrosian has built, and I think it was really a great game by the legendary TIgran, and also an instructive one. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other basics in chess videos from the series with some more opening principles, middle game strategies, and the endgame strategies. And you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.